Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome into the Steven Singer Studios. Marc Farzetta with you here on the Farzy Show. Right out of the gate, I just hope everyone really enjoyed their weekend as far as the weather went. I got so much done outside, worked on the yard, did a little painting, played with my daughter outside. It was a lovely, lovely weekend, and I hope you guys got to enjoy the beauty, the majesty that was the gorgeous weather we had over the weekend. Welcome in. Also, I hope you guys didn't tear up all your brackets. Because there are some schools that just hate your bracket and they think your bracket is stupid and they think you don't know what you're talking about when it comes to college basketball. And yeah, I'm one of those people as well. Oral Roberts. God. Oh, man. Woo. Wow. You guys. Nah. More on you later. Anyway, we're going to get to all that stuff with the bracket. We're going to get into the 76ers. We're going to get into the Flyers today. We're going to get a little Phillies conversation going as well. And we're going to talk about when the next move is for the Philadelphia Eagles. What is the next move? Is it Zach Ertz? What could it be? We will dissect it all throughout the show today. But I'd like to start not with the Flyers, as I tend to do when they have a really embarrassing, awful loss. I feel like that was far. I'm far enough removed from that horrible loss. So let's just talk. Let's go right into the Sixers. I don't have anything against Julius Randle. At least I didn't going into this weekend. Now I really don't like Julius Randle, even a little bit. And I'm actually happy about that because it's going to make me feel as if these Knicks Sixers games actually mean something when they usually don't because the Knicks are just a god-awful franchise. But I am now excited to really not like somebody on the New York Knicks, and that's Julius Randle. But before we get to Julius Randle, I want to get to just how well the Sixers have played, especially how they played against the Kings, where it seemed like everything was going right for them. And then they got the back-to-back going up against the Knicks last night. But everything was going right against the Kings. Then the Sixers come back to face the Knicks. They go to Madison Square Garden. They're going to have a nice long road trip here, including now going out to the West Coast to face the Golden State Warriors. But they started off with a rival in the Knicks, the supposed rival. The teams are supposed to be good at the same time for that to be a rivalry. But the Sixers look like they came out strong. It looks like they came out dominant. Like, all right, let's get this win here, and then we'll deal with the rest later. It's kind of let's not look past an opponent type of deal. And they go into last night's game, and they weren't sure whether or not Ben Simmons was going to play. He ends up playing in the game despite the knee soreness, and he's fine. He's good to go. So he goes out there, and he looks just like Ben Simmons should look, where he's aggressive, he's attacking the rim, setting up his teammates as per usual, solid defense. And the Sixers start going on a little bit of a run here. They start building up a big lead. And then right before halftime, you start to see the Knicks chip away at that. And I'm thinking it's a little too early for that, the kind of back-to-back type of thing going on here. It's a little too early right now for the Sixers to start really lagging behind. And sure enough, that's what they did. And then in the third quarter, they're down. And I couldn't help myself. Let me just get this in here. I couldn't help myself. Sixers on DraftKings last night were a -1 going into the game. I wasn't sure about the status of Ben Simmons. I saw that he was playing. Saw it was against the Knicks. Saw it was on the road. I said, you know what? Ben Simmons don't lose to the Knicks. So let me just get in on the action. Threw a couple of dollars on the game, right? Just a couple of bucks. And I looked at it and I thought, they got this. They're going to beat the Knicks. And if they're going to beat the Knicks, they're going to beat it by more than one. Come on. So then the second half. Knicks start taking, not just take the lead, they start taking control of the game. Danny Green's not giving you anything. Tobias Harris doesn't really look much like himself. Shake Milton scored some points for you. You're missing a lot of threes, unfortunately. And it just didn't have I didn't have a good vibe. And then out of nowhere, you start to see the Sixers come back in this game. Matisse Thybulle hits a big corner three. They start to take control of the game. They start to control the pace. The defense starts to lock down a little bit. And Ben Simmons starts to look strong. Dwight Howard's getting you some points in the paint. You started to feel a little bit more confident in the Sixers team that they were going to actually, oh my God, they're going to win this game. And then I don't know how to describe it. Tobias Harris goes to the foul line. Over an 89% free throw shooter. And he misses 2 free throws. That all would have iced the game for you. And then Tobias Harris gets an opportunity to get an inbounds ball from Ben Simmons, and he just looked like he took his eyes off the ball. Looks like he didn't know where the ball was coming from. At first, I was like, wait a minute, Ben didn't zing that at him. He didn't whip it at him, right? That was just a weird kind of thing. And it was a type of situation that you see in football a lot where what do you say? You say that the receiver ran before he had the ball. So you basically take your eye off the ball is what happened. And that's what happened to Tobias Harris. Turnover goes the other way. You think there's an opportunity there for the Knicks to win the game because there is the tie game in that situation. And I just couldn't believe it. But what led up to that moment was Julius Randle getting a ball in the corner, putting his hands on it. Tobias Harris blankets him. Sixers are up 3, 88-85. Julius Randle blatantly pushes off Tobias Harris, shoots the 3, ties the game. And my hands are in the air. I can't believe it. And then that's when the inbounds play happened with Tobias Harris and Ben Simmons. Toby can't get his hands on the basketball. Julius Randle ends up coming up with it and jacks the 3 with actually 2 seconds left on the clock. I thought it was a little early for him to do it, but could have won the game right then and there for the New York Knicks. Fortunately, he didn't. They go to overtime, and that's when Danny Green saved the day. And I get frustrated with Danny Green. I know a lot of you do as well. You'd like that 3 to be a lot more consistent, and hasn't been the case. But last night, in the game, he comes out in the fourth quarter and starts hitting some shots for you. But then in the overtime period, it's 2 clutch threes that really are the reason you won this game. Because he's the one that really gave you some cushion, gave you some life. Not even cushion. You can't say cushion in a 1-point game, but actually gave you life in this game in the overtime period. And you're thinking, that's the veteran that you wanted to come here, and that's the Danny Green that you wanted to come here as well. The guy that was going to knock down those clutch 3-point shots, and that's what he did. It felt like almost he couldn't miss. He ended up missing a little bit later in the overtime period, but before that, right after that is when you saw Tobias Harris go back to the line. He ended up making his free throws after that. You saw Ben Simmons come in and start playing a little bit better as well. But it all started with Danny Green. And wouldn't you know it, after the game, and by the way, Tobias Harris was pushed from the back, and they called that foul. They didn't call the push-off on Julius Randle. They call a foul on, I forget who it was that fouled him. It wasn't Julius Randle, whoever it was with the Knicks. So that's when Toby went to the line. But I'm watching all this unfold, and I'm watching Danny Green step up in the fourth quarter and overtime. All 11 of his points, I believe, were in the fourth quarter and overtime. And I'm listening to Doc Rivers after the game, but I'm watching Danny Green thinking this is the guy putting the quarter in the machine. And I'm listening to Doc Rivers after the game who said the only person that played within himself, played comfortable, and played confident was Danny Green. And on the bench throughout the game, even when the New York Knicks started to go on their runs throughout this game, Danny Green was the only one saying, no, we got this, guy. We got this. He was the one making sure everybody's head stayed in the game, everybody stayed focused, and everybody stayed believing in themselves that they were going to win this game against the Knicks before they go out to the West Coast. Now, that's a veteran leader right there. And that's what you got out of Danny Green, both on the court, on the sidelines itself, and throughout the game. It wasn't the scoring. It certainly wasn't that throughout the game, but leadership, motivating the team. They don't win that game last night without Danny Green being down Seth Curry already, and as we know, being down Joel Embiid. Keith Pompey, Inquirer.com, is going to join us a little bit later in the show to talk about an update on Joel Embiid's injury. I think you're going to like what you're going to hear from Keith Pompey. He's also going to update us on the trade deadline this Thursday, 3 p.m. 3 p.m. trade deadline for the NBA. So look forward to seeing what the 76ers have in store for us, as well as Daryl Morey, as Doc Rivers, and Elton Brand, see what they've all been working on throughout this time. So we'll hear from Keith Pompey about that. A little bit more about that trade deadline. Before the game, Doc Rivers addressed the media where he talked about whether or not this team's going to make a move, what's his influence as a coach, and his feeling as a coach as to what they're going to do. Here's Doc.
I like our team. Listen, if we make a move, great. If we don't, love our team. So I don't get lost in all that stuff. The way I look at it, I'm coaching this team, and this team is really good. Obviously, getting Joel back is the most important thing. There's no move we can make more important than getting Joel back healthy.
I couldn't agree more with that sentiment. Absolutely. That's the move. That's what we're all waiting for anyway. And when we talk to Keith Pompey, I think he's going to make us feel a little bit better about that. The one thing, I'm not reaching for a negative here, but if you're the Sixers, that doesn't behoove you to, and I hate using this term, I feel like we use it a lot, rush Joel Embiid back. You want to make sure that he's good to go. You want to make sure that when he does come back, he's at 100%. And most importantly, not coming back and going, this was too early. This still hurts. See it for another 2 weeks. I won't see it for another 2 weeks. When I listen to Doc Rivers say that, it makes me think for a second that that's the direction they might go. Oh, we got to make sure we get him back healthy. We got to make sure we get him back at peak physical condition. So no matter what, we get him back. It's not a matter of him going out almost the next day. Now, I know Tobias Harris had dealt with this early in the season. You've heard about other guys dealing with bone contusions throughout the season in a lot of different sports. It's just something that you gotta put up with. Some are worse than others, obviously, but sometimes it's just something that you got to just put up with. So here's that brings me to my Julius Randle hate. I got really nothing against him. The thing about the Nets game from a week ago, really, where he got all pissed off and he had to be held back by a teammate. He ran off the court in a huff because he didn't drop the basketball in time, or the ref didn't see what exactly happened. Whatever. He's in a pissy mood. So last night, I couldn't believe it. Like, some people were going back and forth with me on Twitter about this. I couldn't believe he got away with the push-off on Tobias Harris on the game-tying three that forced overtime. Tied the game at 88-88. And usually in the NBA, you're going to let a push-off go. But that's when players are in motion. Like, you have a guy coming up the court, you have a guy going side to side, and it's debatable whether or not the push-off had anything to do about it. And you're not going to make that call, especially if you're the home team. You're not going to make that call on the home team. Whatever. You usually don't make that call. But the fact that Tobias Harris and Julius Randle were stationary and Tobias Harris was all over him on the three-point line for the corner three, and the only reason Julius Randle was able to make that three and get that space was because he pushed off of Tobias Harris. That's like the definition of a foul, of an offensive foul. Physical contact that gains a distinct advantage, that he doesn't make the shot unless he pushes off. I was shocked Tobias Harris didn't say anything about it, but he was blatantly pushed off. You saw him get that spacing, and then Julius Randle makes the three. So Julius Randle, though, I guess, for whatever reason, still found it necessary to bitch about the officiating after the game. Now, this is what happened against the Nets. There was another game in between there that he's also pissed off at the officiating, and now it's also the 76ers. Now, mind you, I made a little a checklist here for people that are worried about Julius Randle. Not many. But it's the what makes Julius Randle happy. All right. How do you make him happy? Well, you don't have the MVP going up against him, and that's Joel Embiid, so he's out. Defensive Player of the Year is still playing a little hurt there with Ben Simmons, so there you go. That'll make him happy. Here's another thing that'll list. Seth Curry's not playing in the game, so 2/5 of your starting lineup aren't even playing in the game. You don't have a call on you where you had a distinct push-off. And let's see, what's the other one? Oh, yeah, all the calls go your way. So close for Julius Randle here. And he decided to take it out on the officiating after the game when I thought a lot more of the calls went the way of the – oh, I forgot the other thing. The Sixers tried to give you this game by passing the ball off Tobias Harris's hands right to you, Julius Randle. So I guess you're still going to be pissed off after they try to give you this game, as did the refs, and you're going to bitch and moan about the refs. Julius Randle post-game.
Long call by the officials. Not enough contact for them to call the play. I don't know who it was nervous, but clearly had possession. After all the fouling and everything that was going on, and for them to call that and decide the game is f***ing ridiculous. So, yeah, it's ridiculous, man. They got to do a better job. There's too many games like this.
The man just can't be happy. Tom Thibodeau came out after the game. It was Nerlens Noel, by the way, that pushed Tobias Harris in the back, and they're like, "Oh no, that's not it. It can't be a foul." Wow, I'm flabbergasted. They won't even give credit to the Sixers for the win that they earned. I mean, quite frankly, the Sixers shouldn't have even won this game, especially with that turnover so late and the way they played throughout stretches of the third quarter and even stretches of the second quarter. But to come out after the game and be like, "Oh yeah, it was all the refs," I want to hate the Knicks again. I really do, and this is certainly helping that. All right, we'll get more of the Sixers from Keith Pompey in just a second. Let's talk about those Flyers. It's really getting old. And I know for a lot of Flyers fans, it's ancient already. I can't take look, Carter Hart has not been good this year. Let me say it. The defense has been atrocious this year. Like Prosper allowing the goals, allowing the turnovers that he's allowed. The Flyers as a team, we've talked enough about how they've lost those battles in the corner, lost battles along the boards in general. But how do you get three different three different goals, allow three different goals off opportunities around the blue line or in the opposing how? And how do you play the puck so lazy if you're Eric Gustafsson, for instance? Like, you actually go out there and battle in the corner, and then you turn and start skating back to your own crease to try to help out your goaltender, your netminder, and you forget where your man is, and the puck goes right on his stick, easy goal. And you're standing right there looking to the sky going, well, I probably should have defended that. You think? I don't know if Alain Vigneault's throwing his arms up in the air and just saying, look, I don't know what I can do with these guys anymore. Chuck, you got to make a move. He's looking up to the front office. Hey, Chuck, get a little help here? Can you get somebody? And I don't know how you push the button to fix this team. And Alain Vigneault even said after the Islanders game, the 6-1 loss, by the way, look, I'm hoping I could figure it out. And if I already had it figured out, I'd be pushing those buttons. Yeah, guess what? Nothing's working right now. And I can't get over, and I'm happy for him, and I'm proud of what he did. If you're a Flyers fan, you should be too. Oscar Lindblom's like, we're down 3-0. All right, somebody fight me. Like, Oscar Lindblom was the guy. Think about the guys that have tried to step up to motivate this team. If you remember, I think it was against the Rangers. Yeah, it was against the Rangers. You had Nolan Patrick trying to fight a guy. Nolan Patrick tried to fight a guy for hitting Claude Giroux. Jake Voracek ended up coming in to scrap a little bit here, so it wasn't Nolan Patrick, the guy that has just had concussion issues like crazy since coming into the league. And Nolan Patrick's the guy fighting. The next guy up is Oscar Lindblom. I mean, look, I know that's not hockey anymore and the fighting, and you don't have a Wayne Simmons anymore. You don't have, really anybody that's going to go out there and start, you don't have a Riley Cote out there. You don't have those guys that are really going to mix things up, right? You don't have those guys that are going to fight to try to defend a teammate on a regular basis. But man, if Nolan Patrick is putting his, literally his head out there, if Oscar Lindblom is going out there to do it as well, where is that wake-up call? If it's not going to come from guys like that, then who is it going to come from? Like, hey guys, this is not my job, but something needs to happen and I'm doing it. It's wild. And I love that those guys will give that effort to try to get something going, but it shouldn't come to that. I mean, being blown out by the Rangers should be that reality check. Blowing a 3-goal lead to the Islanders and then being able to barely hold on to win should be enough. Being down 3-0 should be enough. Watching your defense turn the puck over at the blue line the way they did and along the boards and leaving Carter Hart out to dry at times, that should be enough. It's just so frustrating. I hate being frustrated at the Flyers, especially when you went into the season with such high expectations, and maybe that was our own damn fault. But, man, it's been abysmal. I don't know how they correct it. And when you hear Alain Vigneault get asked the question after the game, so what are you going to do now to try to solve this problem? And he's like, I got nothing. Makes you think for a second that that's going to be a long season, and it shouldn't be. It's still got another a month, not even, before the trade deadline for the NHL. Yeah, Chuck Fletcher, something needs to happen. If you want to help turn things around, you need to get somebody on that blue line to help out, not just your netminder, but this team in general. That's what needs to happen sooner rather than later. We will get a little bit of the NCAA tournament a little bit later, but just a crazy weekend as far as that went as well. I do want to give a shout out in the opening segment here to Villanova. If you would have told me they would have won not one but 2 games to start it out in the opening week of the NCAA tournament, I would have said, you know what? That Jay Wright's a great coach. I don't know if he's that great. He is great. He is that great of a coach. He is a Hall of Famer already. I can't believe it. So he's a finalist right now for the record. But it was just it was insane to watch the way that they played basketball, rallied together, took care of Winthrop. I thought they'd beat Winthrop. And then the way they played yesterday, just on top of it. Now, they played another low seed, but still, they just played on top of it. And even just, there was no mistakes. It was crisp, pure basketball. Villanova survives and advances. Good for them. Like I said, a little bit more on the NCAA tournament. And in particular, how CBS has chosen to cover this. And I feel like CBS has tried to do what TNT has done with the NBA on TNT. And CBS has done this many times. And now I think was their most blatant Hail Mary at such a popular pregame show. We'll get to that in just 1 second after we talk to Keith Pompey. But right now, I do want to tell you about my friend Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers. Do what I do. Need a diamond? Need jewelry? Need something like that? You go to Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers. Go to IHateStevenSinger.com or the other corner of 8th and Walnut, where you always get, no matter what, the perfect price. You don't have to worry about whether or not the guy next to you is paying more or less than you. You don't have to worry about your negotiating skills. You get it at the perfect price, because here's a little insider tip for you from Steven. Other jewelers, they mark up their inventory, they mark up their diamonds, they mark up their gold, they mark up their jewelry just to make you feel like you're getting a deal, like you know how to haggle, like you know how to negotiate. Don't have to worry about that at Steven Singer. Everything is already set at the perfect price. You walk in, and guess what? You have a real jewelry expert show you everything you want to see, and then you take advantage of the perfect price. So all you have to do is concentrate on buying the perfect gift for that person that you love, that special someone. That's all you got to worry about. You don't got to worry about numbers. No. They got you for that. Everything's set at the perfect price every single time. Other jewelers must really hate this guy because he takes customers with great customer satisfaction. Go to Steven Singer Jewelers at the other corner of 8th and Walnut, or go to IHateStevenSinger.com. Every time, the perfect price guaranteed from Steven Singer. Without further ado, from Inquirer.com to talk about Joel Embiid's injury, the game last night, and also where the Sixers are going to go at the trade deadline. From Inquirer.com, Keith Pompey joined us on the Zatos Investments guest line. Caught up with him after the game last night. Here's our good friend, Keith Pompey. Fresh off a dramatic overtime victory for the 76ers, we have the man himself, the beat reporter on the 76ers for the Philadelphia Inquirer, Inquirer.com, our good friend, Keith Pompey. Keith, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing? Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure, man. I appreciate you coming on. Just first order of business, before we talk about the game, before we talk about really the trade deadline and everything, update on Embiid, all that stuff, I just want to know, at what point of the game tonight did you tweet this? When did this happen? When were you when were you speechless? I'm just going to take a guess. First off, well, let me just say, on point with Coming to America 2 being out and everything. Loved it, by the way. And then also, I'm going to guess Tobias Harris missed free throws.
It wasn't the three throws. It was the point where it was right after the three throws that he missed, but it was that turnover they had.
Okay, like from Ben Simmons.
Yeah. And he turns around, and then next thing you know, Julius Randle gets the ball, and then Randle misses the three. But I'm like, wow, I just couldn't believe it. It was like a comedy of errors down the stretch for the Sixers.
Well, just one more time. There we go. Me too. Speechless at that same moment, my friend. So what did happen on that play? What did happen on that? I mean, look, Tobias Harris is an 88, 89% free throw shooter. Stuff happens, but that play, Ben Simmons inbounding to Tobias Harris, what happened on that? Was Tobias did he not have his eyes on the ball? Did Ben wing it at him too hard? What happened?
But actually, Tobias wasn't looking for the ball. Yeah, you're right. He didn't have his eyes on the ball. It looked at, and I even looked at it on the monitor. He's looking the other way, and then here comes the ball.
Mm-hmm. And you look at the monitor because you're at MSG. You're at Madison Square Garden. You're traveling with this squad.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. It's crazy, right? Listen, man, I like it though. I mean, I do. I mean, I know a lot of people, I think I'm the only reporter. There's a guy, Kai Carlin, who travels as well. But I think that at the Inquirer, I'm the only guy who travels. And the thing is, I mean, I feel like, especially with the 76ers, they're off to their best start since when they won the championship, right? That's one thing. Secondly, there's a lot of things that you miss on TV just because of the TV angles, right? So I feel like it benefits me to be there inside the arena, and that way, you get stuff, you get to converse with certain people and things like that. So it's cool.
Yeah, and you get to provide us what others can't provide us because you're one of the few people on the scene. Don't think it's lost on us there, Keith Pompey, Inquirer.com. We appreciate your hustle. So what did happen to the 76ers late in this game? Because at one point, it seemed like they were going to run away with this game despite Ben Simmons playing probably hurt, despite probably, obviously Seth Curry not playing in the game, and obviously without Joel Embiid. So what happened to this team late?
I think that it looked like Tobias was just missing a lot of shots, and I'm chalking it up that he was weary, his legs was hurting. I also think that this team, let's be honest, they're playing without two starters. They're not as deep as everyone thinks. Before, even when Joel played, it was a time when they went to their bench, they were always losing leads. So after a while, stuff is going to happen. Now, there was a point in that third quarter where I believe it was the third quarter where they were outscored like by 13 points, at the end. So it's one of those things where you're saying to yourself, like, okay, they're having these lows, what's going to happen, but they're on the road. They beat the Knicks a couple days ago. Tobias is like, I'm an all-star. Julius Randle is motivated because he wants to prove that he's the all-star, and also the Sixers beat this team 14 consecutive times. So this team is motivated, and the Sixers, they're just not as deep as everyone thinks they are.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, as they say, a win is a win and all that. Yeah. But after the game, I heard you ask the question to Tobias Harris, what's the difference between this team this year and last year's team about losing games like this? The Sixers team last year lost games like this, and why did they win? He gave his answer. It came down to really him making about himself. He didn't want to blame anybody else. But what's your opinion, Keith Pompey, as to why this team is different?
Well, I'm going to go with what he said about us no longer being in the locker room.
That was a great first part of the answer. Yeah.
That great first. Actually, I think it's Doc Rivers. I do. I think is the coaching. Not only that, is like the one thing that I saw, like when they would call timeouts, Doc was letting them have it. I mean, he was letting them have it. He was getting into them, this and that. And then also, I think you got guys like Danny Green. I mean, think about it. Like Danny Green is a guy that, a lot of people saying, oh, man, but what is he doing? Like, he doesn't do anything. He doesn't do this. Well, he scored all 11 of his points in the fourth quarter in overtime. And Tobias made the game-winning foul shots, but Danny Green is the one that got them in the game and gave them a lead. So when you look at it that way, I think that is really Doc Rivers, is Daryl Morey, the guys that they brought in here, and they just changed the culture. And now it's like, they're like upset over bad wins, ugly wins, when in the past they were like, well, we'll be okay after bad losses. So it's just a whole completely different mentality. And it all starts with the coach and the president of basketball ops.
Yeah, and what was really amazing about all this was Doc Rivers, in the same post-game press conference, said that the only person that was really giving it to the team was, as you just said, was Danny Green. And also the only person that didn't seem to lose his spirit, I believe is the way Doc Rivers put it after the game as well, saying, hey, we're going to win this. No matter what, guys, we're going to win this.
Yeah, he's a winner. And it's funny because that's a reason why the Sixers brought him here. Doc said it. He says, I know he's a champion, but he also plays well with great players, plays off of great players. And then Danny always said, my only part of my job is basketball, like in the games. The other part is like with these young guys and bringing a winning culture. Like he owned that. Like from the first day, that's all he talked about. So, we're starting to see it now. We're starting to see it with him, and we're seeing it with Dwight Howard.
I made a checklist. You mentioned the name Julius Randle. I made a checklist, and it was called the way to make Julius Randle happy. And the checklist included MVP of the league has to be out. Defensive player of the year has to be playing on one leg. A 98 or 89% free throw shooter has to miss 2 free throws. You have to pass the ball to him, and he has to get all the calls. He was bitching and moaning after this game again about the officiating. When, Keith, I don't know about you, I saw a blatant push-off on Tobias Harris on his game-tying 3 that forced overtime. What are you making of Julius Randle?
He needs to stop crying. Like, I think I'm a big Julius Randle fan. I mean, let me just say that. Like, I think he's a good player. I like how his game has grown.
I agree.
But it comes to a point where, like, he's going to get fined after this game because, I mean, he dropped the F-bomb about the officiating and the whole 9. And when you look at it, last time that they played a national TV game against the Brooklyn Nets, he's after the game doing the same stuff. You know what I mean? Looked like he's trying to charge after a rep. So you don't want to get that reputation. It's like it's different when you're on like LeBron's level. I'm not even saying LeBron does that because he doesn't. Right. But if you're like a future Hall of Famer, regarded as one of the greatest ever, sometimes people give you a pass. But if you're not, you're just going to get teed up and get fined and a whole lot of other things. So I think, Julius just needs to relax a little bit and be quiet because like you said, that was a blatant push off.
All right, good. I'm glad we're on the same page there. Keith, going forward, they got this road trip coming up. They're a game up on the Nets right now. Just got Blake Griffin in the lineup, and he dunked. So everyone's all crazy about Blake Griffin dunking again. So there's that. But right now they're a game up on the Nets. They're 2 games up on the Bucks. Can the Sixers team right now, let's say with a healthy Joel Embiid and a healthy Seth Curry, can they be an Eastern Conference Finals team, if not a Finals team?
I think they can be an Eastern Conference Finals team. I don't think they can be a Finals team. I'm sorry. Like, my thing is a prime example. Like tonight, we saw what happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I get it. People are going to say Joel Embiid didn't play. Seth Curry didn't play. But when you look at Brooklyn, you're saying right now, well, Kevin Durant is just relaxing. You know what I mean? He's just chilling. I mean, he's waiting for the playoffs. And right. and no offense, like Joel is a dominant player. But Kevin Durant is a former MVP and a 2-time NBA champion. You know what I mean? So they're missing him a lot, and they're still going out there beating teams. So, I just don't see it right now. I don't see what they have is going to be able to beat Brooklyn in a 7-game series.
Okay. Well, so you mentioned Embiid, so let me just get this out of the way. I know we're not supposed to have an update until Saturday, so a little bit more than a week away, 6-7 days away. What any update that you know of as far as that contusion for Joel Embiid?
Like when I ask people about it, I'm like, hey, you guys saying 2-3 weeks, man. Like normally when you hear about a bone bruise, it could last a whole lot longer. From what I was told, it's one of those things where the area that is bruised at is not as, it's not like, it's his knee, of course, but it's not like as concerning as it would be if it was on another section of the knee. So they feel as if like they really escaped, or avoided like something that could have been more harmful, and something that could be more painful than what it was originally, originally thought to be. So they're optimistic that it will be 2 to 3 weeks. So that means another week or another 2 weeks from now that he'll return. But the thing about those bone bruises, even though they say that, players have said that they had it and they played, but it lingered. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that it can last long.
But what you're telling me is if you're going to get a bone bruise anywhere, it's on the best spot possible to get a bone bruise.
That's what someone told me. So I was just like, oh, okay, all right, bro.
I'll take it. Hey, I'll take
it. Yeah, I'll take it. I mean, but they do seem. Here's the thing: they do seem optimistic. I mean, They seem really optimistic. It's weird. Like Tobias Harris had a bone bruise earlier, and he missed like 2 games. But this one is deeper, is worse. But from what I hear, from what I'm told, and that. The people who looked at his knee, one guy said, I'm not a doctor, but from what the doctors told me that, he'll be fine.
Okay. Easy enough. Yeah. So until then, with the deadline coming up, the NBA trade deadline coming up on Thursday, and I think I know where you're going to go with this because I read your first sentence. Well, I read your story, but in the first sentence, you used a word that I didn't want to see that's associated with the trade deadline. And that word, Keith Pompey, in your story in Inquirer.com was disappointed. We may be disappointed in what they do at the deadline. What do you think ends up happening at the deadline? Is it a blockbuster deal? Is it a bench bolster? Or is it just maybe even a stand pat?
Now, the one thing that I will say is that the Sixers are active from what I'm hearing. Like I'm hearing that they're active. They're trying to see if they can get teams involved to make a third team. So where, they can dump salary or they can make things work out. Right. But I'm also hearing if the 76ers feel like it's not going to be someone that's going to make a substantial upgrade in regards to like being in the championship hunt, then they're not going to make that move because, they look at it like they really like Matisse Thybulle. They really like Tyrese Maxey. Now, when they're talking to teams, those are the guys that everyone wants. Like, okay, you got to give us one of these in addition to other people. And the thing is, you got to realize that like some of these guys, like you may give up something, but what if this guy decides not to resign? Secondly, what if the guy says, we're talking about an elite guy. And also, what if he's not a really good mix? And, so I think that, with Daryl Morey and is a matter of like, we're not trying to give up our assets. Now, that doesn't mean that in the buyout market that they can get someone, right? But we got to understand there's something. Like they were willing to give up Ben Simmons and Matisse Thybulle, right, for James Harden. Now, if they would have got James Harden, the Sixers would have been not overwhelming, but they would have been the favorites to win the NBA title, right? James Harden is a former MVP, arguably a top 5 player in the league. You give up stuff for that, but you may not give up something for somebody who's like, hey, he's trying to be like a third team all NBA. Well, that's what Ben is. You know what I mean? That's what Ben is. Or something like that. You don't do that. And the Sixers, they know that, and they're not going to make that mistake.
Real quick on Ben Simmons. Obviously, he looked healthy today. Minute restriction, or last night rather. No minute restriction or anything like that. He's good to go from this point out.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? Here's my thing. I think that we're going to see a lot of these, and this is like a lot of teams. And again, I didn't talk to anyone, and I'm not getting anything, but I remember there was a point where Doc Rivers said in the second half, we're going to see where guys are going to miss games, right? Now, the NBA, if you say that you're taking off a game for rest, but you don't have any prior injuries or something like that, you could possibly get fined. So I feel like that guys are looking at it like, well, look, he does have a sore knee, so we have to pick and choose when we think he's going to play. And I think that might not have been yesterday, but I think that we're going to see that going on a lot this year. I mean, the second half with Joel, Ben, maybe even if Danny Green is nursing something, it's going to be one of those type of things just because these games are grueling.
So let's just say this, Thursday, 3 p.m., you think the Sixers will most likely stand pat, at most a buyout market guy?
Yeah, it just depends because it depends on what happens. If they can, because again, they're doing their due diligence. They're talking to teams. They're doing everything. But what they keep saying is like, unless it's something that's going to enable them to win a championship, they're not going to give up those assets. They're just not.
All right. Well, hey, Keith Pompey, Inquirer.com. Thanks for coming on the show. Your first visit here to the Farzy Show. Appreciate you coming on. Safe travels to you, my friend. Seriously, you're going out there to the Golden State, so safe travels amongst all the craziness.
I will, man. I'll do it. And thanks for having me on the show.
Great having you. Follow Keith Pompey, Inquirer.com. He'll be out there on the West Coast and all that, especially with the trade deadline coming up Thursday, 3 p.m. Keith Pompey, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks, Keith.
Thanks, my man. Bye-bye.
Bye. Once again, my thanks to Keith Pompey joining us there on the Zatos Investments guest line. Before we get to some of our sponsors, pay the bills, as they say, I love that he is telling us from what he's heard, it's not that bad with Joel Embiid. If you could have a bone contusion, a bone bruise, essentially, this is the best place to have it underneath. So, all right, fine. And then my original worry, as I told you earlier in the show, my original worry is that Doc Rivers was like, the biggest thing is that we get Joel Embiid back healthy. So does that mean that they're going to say, all right, now he's healthy, but let's give it another 3 games or so just to make sure? Like that was my overall concern. But if that's what they need to do, that's what they need to do. Because, yes, all that matters is getting him back healthy. And I agree with what Doc Rivers said, and we played it for you earlier. Again, that's the biggest move that they can make before the trade deadline. The biggest impact they could have on the team. Nothing's bigger. No move is bigger than getting a healthy Joel Embiid back. And I would agree. And I hate when GMs and coaches do this in front office members when they say, oh, this will be like our trade deadline acquisition. No, it's not. Nope. You knew you were getting him back at some point. You should have gotten something else. But in a way, it does help kind of, like a game like that against the Knicks, that doesn't slip away for the portions it did if Joel Embiid's playing in that game. That goes without saying. But it is at least good to hear from Keith Pompey from what he is hearing, and he's the beat writer for the Inquirer on the 76ers. So if he's hearing that it's not that bad with Joe, and he'll be back before we know it, and he'll be 100%, then that makes me feel good. The other thing is about the trade deadline itself. I'm not expecting that blockbuster deal because I feel like that blockbuster deal already happened. The blockbuster deal was James Harden going to the Nets. That didn't happen here in Philadelphia. So I think at most what they do is they don't touch the starting five. I don't think they make a move in that regard. I think they wait for that buyout market. And I think that's the move they'll make to bolster the bench. I asked them, do you see it being a blockbuster deal, a bench bolster type of deal, or do you just see them standing pat? I would think, if anything, all that's going to happen with the Sixers is somebody comes in to help them off the bench. Whether it might be even J.J. Redick. Who knows? I know there's more names being linked from J.J. or more reports coming out of J.J. Redick being linked back to the 76ers. So we'll see how that went. I thought all those rumors were gone. Apparently not. So we'll see if that ends up happening. But my thanks again to Keith Pompey joining us on the Zatos Investments guest line. And you know what? Speaking of Zatos Investments, they are an up-and-coming luxury real estate development and investment company in the Philadelphia area. They design and develop top-of-the-line custom homes all around the city, ranging from small single-family rehabs to ground-up new construction townhomes and condo buildings. Zatos also works closely with their private investor base to provide them with substantial returns on their investment, ranging from 20 to 40%. If you want to get involved with Zatos, because right now they're just crushing it in the Philadelphia real estate game. How about this? To learn how you could invest and also get more information, check out info@zatosinvestments.com. You can email them at info@zatosinvestments.com or visit zatosinvestments.com. I hope you're having fun with the big tourney, because I am, especially with FanUp. If you haven't downloaded the FanUp app just yet, ladies and gentlemen, what are you doing? Get on the App Store. Download the FanUp app right now. Use promo code FANUP. Get 2,000 points right out of the gate. Rise on the leaderboard. Challenge your friends. It's like fantasy sports on steroids. You're going to have so much fun with this. Use, of course, FanUp. If you want to be a baller, as they like to say, you got to download the FanUp app. Days of playing fantasy sports alone are over. Enter FanUp's super fun daily and weekly contests. Answer fun questions. Rise on that leaderboard. Like I said, also squad up with your friends and win even more. FanUp is the only place where you could put all these points together and you could win great prizes, brand prizes. They just gave away a Louis Vuitton bag, people. They're not messing around here at FanUp. Go to FanUp. Go to the App Store. Download the FanUp app right now, and you can win the hottest brand prizes. Any day, any week, any season, you could be the real MVP. Download the FanUp app in the App Store and use promo code FANUP to get 2,000 bonus points. FanUp. May the best fan win. And how about Steak and Maine? My man, Tony Cavada. Steak and Maine, fine dining in the heart of Northeast Maryland. Whether you dine in a more upscale steakhouse or casual bar and patio, you'll enjoy the highest quality prime meats, fresh seafood, world-class oyster bar, and freshly prepared sushi. All that in an extensive wine list, including Cavada Cellars wines as well, from his family to yours for that table. How about that? Open every day for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch, even Easter, ladies and gentlemen. So check them out for that. Steak and Maine in Northeast Maryland, voted #1 place for steaks in America by the Travel Channel, the Cooking Channel. Check it out for yourself. Go to steakandmaine.com for more information. And speaking of Steak and Maine, how about our little social media check-in here, brought to you by Steak and Maine and steakandmaine.com. Jack just said, want to be a baller? Well, if you want to be a baller, get involved in FanUp. There you go. Also, Danny Green. Mally, I'm with you, buddy. I said earlier, he drives me nuts. And then not only does he actually rise to the occasion with the most substantial thing, which is points in overtime, 3-pointers in overtime, and helps bring you back and then win the game, but the fact that throughout the game, he was the guy going, fellas, yeah, we ain't losing this game. We ain't losing this game. You want to talk about biggest differences from this year to last year, as we just talked about with Keith Pompey? Yeah, sure, it's the head coach. Goes without saying. But how about the veteran leadership of Danny Green? I know some people don't want to hear it because all they see is the most important thing, the points, what he was really brought here to do in terms of draining threes. Sure. But you can't just throw out the window the veteran leadership. You can't get, like, for guys like Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris is a veteran, and Ben Simmons is a veteran by now, but when you have other guys like that are more veteran than others, then you tend to look up to them. If Danny Green's the guy on the bench going, yeah, guess what, guys, this one ain't slipping away. We're winning this game. Well, then you have to have somebody on the bench with that mindset, just in case that little hint of doubt crawls into the back of your head. You can't just say to yourself, well, we tried, so this one's over. No, You have to have somebody there to quell that. Say, no, we're not thinking that way. We're only going to win. But yeah, no, as far as the shot, very inconsistent, wildly inconsistent. But he won that game last night. If they don't have the Andy Green in that game, they don't win that game. What else? Need to make a move, in my opinion, from Rob for the 76ers. I think they do, too. They still need bench help. I know. Look, I don't want this team to go through another transition at the deadline. And even though when they got Jimmy Butler and then they got Tobias Harris and then they lost in Game 7 to the Raptors on the quadruple doink. By the way, some people were comparing Julius Randle's shot last night to that. No, I'm not. No. I try to block that out from my memory, and nothing will make me go back to that unless I see the actual replay of that awful shot. But anyway, when they went to the Game 7 against the Raptors and they lost, there was a couple of different makeovers of that team. Same thing with your squad last year, trying to coach a different team, and then shut down, trying to re-coach them, and then all of a sudden Shake Milton was your starting lineup. And although Doc Rivers, I think, can handle that, that's not the best thing to do with a starting five. So I think they really do like the chemistry of the starting five. I don't think they want to mess with that, and I think you end up getting a piece off the bench. That's it. I don't think there's going to be any big deal. And like Keith Pompey wrote in a story, I think Sixers fans will be disappointed because I don't know. I know Kyle Lowry would get people excited. It'll get me excited, but I don't think they go that route because I don't think they mess with their starting five. I don't think they end up doing that. As far as the Flyers, yeah, they're killing me too. Nasty Knuckles checking in. What's up, fellas? Jacob, Sixers can do it, Mark. You could have just asked. Could have just asked Jacob. I don't know why you didn't go to my YouTube channel and look at the comments there, Jacob, and just say, well, hey, forget what Danny Green's saying. Jacob's saying we could do this. Jacob, I like your confidence as well. I kid you not. I'm not being sarcastic. Michael saying, Farzetta, I love that you're back on. Thank you very much. It's good to have you. I appreciate you enjoying the show. Brett checking in saying, Mark, it just says a letter, and the letter is F, and it says that letter, the Flyers. All right? WTF, what is happening? People were talking Stanley Cup. I wasn't talking Stanley Cup, but I was talking about a legit contender. That's what I was talking about. Boy, am I an idiot. Not that you need further evidence of that, but boy, am I an idiot. And it's not the way it's working out right now for the Flyers. You get an opportunity to win this series, and I hate even calling it that, but that's the way the schedule is now, where you have these like 3-game playoff series here and there. But you have an opportunity tonight to win the series. Go win the series, at least, please. Dear Lord Almighty, please let the Flyers win the series tonight. And hopefully you have your netminder play well also. Henry's checking in. Morning, Mark. Huge fan. Just found the show. Oh, awesome. After the Graham interview. That's great. Yeah, my thanks again to Brandon Graham. By the way, I just hit him up again over the weekend just to say thanks. And, like, there was a back and forth there. Like, just beyond a nice – not that I didn't know he was a nice guy, but beyond a nice guy. Inside the Birds checking in. Fellas, always a pleasure. We'll talk some Birds in just 1 second, as a matter of fact. We'll get to that. But thank you very much for everyone that commented on our YouTube page here. Make sure you click subscribe. We're up to 750 subscribers already for a young show. So I appreciate everybody checking us out on YouTube and across all our social media platforms. That was our social media check-in brought to you by Steak and Maine and steakandmaine.com. Now it's time for everybody's favorite part of the show, our morning rush, brought to you by Sky Motorcars and SkyMotorcars.com. NCAA tournament. Good God, y'all. Loyola Chicago and Sister Jean. Oral Roberts and Sister Jean. I don't mess with these people. These people are crazy. They are crazy. Right now, Oral Roberts, 81-78 win over Florida. Everybody goes bonkers. People are losing their minds over this team, and rightfully so. This is fun. This is why everyone thinks it's so great about the tournament. But more importantly, I know everyone's going to look at Sister Jean. I know everyone's going to locally here look at Villanova, and they took care of business against North Texas and all that. But Loyola Chicago versus Illinois. I loved Illinois. Absolutely loved Illinois. But then you look at Loyola Chicago, and like most of you, I'm not really paying attention to Loyola Chicago. But then this guy comes in, and I just say this. Not all heroes wear capes, but A2D Radio put this up here. Fun fact, before his time with Loyola Chicago, Cameron Krutwig starred as Rod Farva from Super Troopers. If you don't know Super Troopers, it's only one of the greatest movies in the history of movies ever. So you should check it out sometime. But I felt like that was just a perfect comparison. Good job to you guys. So a lot of credit, all the credit in the world to A2D Radio. I see it. I absolutely see it. And that guy's a hero right there. And now they're advancing. By the way, he's a 6'9" center that was going up against Cockburn with Illinois. Nobody survives Cockburn. You know who does? Carr Ramrod. That's who survives Cockburn. Way to go. Way to go, Loyola Chicago. Good Chicago. Good hustle to you. Another all-around team victory for Villanova. They beat number 13 North Texas. So good hustle to them. That was awesome. And like I've been mentioning, the Flyers are back at it tonight when they take on the Islanders at 7 o'clock. Deshaun Jackson. Here was the football conversation I wanted to get into. Deshaun Jackson is now a member of the LA Rams. That's where he just signed a 1-year deal with the LA Rams, and that's where he's going to be playing the rest of his next year at least. Here's what it got me thinking. If you follow these guys on social media, for a bunch of guys that haven't done anything yet in the NFL, Travis Fulgham, Jalen Reagor going into his sophomore season, as well as Greg Ward, like, they hear you and they hear us. The Eagles don't have that number one receiver. I think anyone who looks at the roster right now goes, oh no. Like right now, if you got to throw to somebody, assuming Zach Ertz isn't here, which I still don't think he's going to be here, Dallas Goedert's your guy. Travis Fulgham disappeared. I'd love to talk to Travis Fulgham and just ask him what the hell happened last year. Not necessarily with him, but with the game plan that involved him, because I kind of like when he was involved. Greg Ward, Jalen Reagor, giant chip on their shoulder, a boulder on their shoulder with the way people are disrespecting this wide receiving core. And I don't think it's really being disrespectful. I mean, if you're them, you're thinking it's disrespectful. But if you're just the average Joe fan, if you're a media member, you're going, yeah, if you're Jalen Hurts and you're like, you want to build around me, and that is okay. All right, let's go to work here, fellas. But they put the work in. They get together in Texas. They're throwing the football around already. Great. But they hear what you're saying. They're hearing you talk about getting Kyle Pitts. They hear you talking about getting Waddle. They hear you talking about Devontae Smith. They hear you talking about Chase. They hear you talking about getting these guys. And, hey, back to Brandon Graham. That's what he told us last week. Jamar Chase or Kyle Pitts. I'm a Kyle Pitts. I'm on the Kyle Pitts train. But if you're any one of these receivers, you're thinking to yourself, hey, what about me? I can help this team win right now. Oh, that's great. I want you to have that chip on your shoulder because I want it to be the most grueling, intense wide receiver battle that you could imagine. I want it to be the most intense wide receiver battle in training camp that you can imagine because that only helps the Eagles. It only helps Jalen Hurts. And by the way, that also only helps everybody else. If Travis Fulgham, Greg Ward, and Jalen Reagor are all battling it out with whoever the next wide receiver the Eagles draft, and they're going to take a wide receiver in this draft at some point, just like they're going to take a quarterback at some point. But if they're all thinking, yeah, everyone's against me, and they got that underdog mentality in their own right, and one of the best things that came out of the interview with Brandon Graham that we didn't talk about enough was that the hungry dogs are hungry again. They got that appetite again, and you want to see those guys fill their bellies this season. And it's really, I think, a lot of it's going to start at that wide receiver position. A lot of it's going to start at the tight end group as well, because so much of this season is obviously going to depend on Jalen Hurts. And here's, I'll say this till the cows come home. I will not accept the idea of an overall rebuild of a 3, 4, 5 year type of rebuild where we just got to wait for this team to be bad and wait through it. We thought the world was over when Chip Kelly got fired. And we thought, oh my God, look at it. No, Deshaun Jackson isn't here anymore. LaShawn McCoy isn't here anymore. What are they going to do with this squad? And you know what? They won a Super Bowl 2 years after that. So you talk to me about a rebuild, forget it. And I will say this about Howie Roseman's press conference from last week, at least his portion of the press conference from last week. He was right in that things turn around quickly in the NFL. And he was a big part of the reason it turned around before. And I said this earlier, I'll say it again. I said this last week. I have a feeling that going into training camp, we're going to feel a little bit different about Howie Roseman. I think there's already been stress taken off of him or pressure taken off of him by all the reports that come out about Jeffrey Lurie. I feel like there's a little bit of alleviation there. If Howie has that good draft, and this is what we're all waiting for, see what Howie does in this draft. If he takes another quarterback, get ready for a rebuild. If he takes a quarterback in the first round at number 6 overall, get ready for another rebuild. But if he doesn't, yeah, then we could be talking about We could be talking about getting that wide receiver. We could be talking about getting Kyle Pitts. And we're talking about a whole different ball game right now surrounding Howie Roseman and what they could do in the early goings of this season. James, check it out here. Hey, Favre, what's the name of the restaurant you love? If you haven't seen Super Troopers, you got to treat yourself. Treat yourself to that. And finally, I teased it earlier. I don't know what CBS is doing, but I do know what they're doing. They're trying to be the NBA on TNT and be the fun-loving show and all that stuff. Wally Zerbiak and all the other guys on that squad. But if you haven't seen this yet, maybe you can explain it to me in the comments. Maybe a little later today, hit me up and tell me what was going on here. I'm watching the Sixers. I'm flipping back and forth between that and the NCAA tournament, and I just happened to land on this. Somebody want to help me out with what that was? Are those the teams still dancing? Is that what that was? Did I put it together? Am I a detective? I don't know. But it was one of the most awkward things I've ever seen in my life. And I always mess up the Gumbel brothers. Bryant Gumbel? Greg Gumbel. He thought it was weird too. He was a little freaked out by it, to be honest with you. That was our Morning Rush segment brought to you by the great people of Sky Motor Cars and SkyMotorcars.com. I do give a lot of credit, by the way. One last thing I wanted to throw in there. I do give a lot of credit to Tobias Harris after the game. In case you missed it, Doc Rivers has a grandchild, and Austin Rivers, his son, had a baby. So he was all excited to be able to go see the baby. He goes to see the baby, and he says it made him feel he was in a Zen-like state of mind before he got to the arena, which is beautiful, right? And he decided that he was going to take it easy on his team. Tobias Harris got asked by Keith Pompey, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, about whether or not Doc Rivers was more Zen-like and easier on the bench because he was in such a euphoric state after seeing his grandchild. And Tobias was like, nah, man, he was chewing my ear off the whole game. So it's a little bit comforting for me, at least, to know that while I'm screaming at the television because I don't want to lose my bet with DraftKings, that you also have Doc Rivers screaming at these guys on the sidelines and that they actually respond to it. So it's a nice little thing to have right there. That's our Morning Rush brought to you by Sky Motor Cars and SkyMotorcars.com. Time for Big Bets brought to you by DraftKings. I said I wouldn't do this much when it came to the 76ers because I don't want to bet on my own team. But sure enough, I look at the 76ers last night, and I see that Ben Simmons is going to play. I see that the Sixers are at -1. Let me tell you the emotions I was going through at every play. I only put a couple of bucks on the game, but I was like, whatever. And Julius Randle hits the three, pushes off. I maintain he pushed off blatantly. And I'm thinking, all right, overtime actually I think kind of helps me if this goes to overtime because I think the Sixers will rise above and they'll win this game. And then the turnover happened for Tobias Harris, and I'm thinking, if they inbound that ball, they just hit a jump shot, then I'm golden, pony boy. No. Has to be a turnover. Has to go to overtime. Has to be a 1-point game. I go through all that stress just not to lose $10. There. I told you what I bet. $10. It's amazing what it does. But make sure you bet with DraftKings when you do get the opportunity to bet with DraftKings. Looking at some other things. I'm back on the beating up on the Cavaliers bandwagon. I know I mentioned that last week and it did not work out for me. Game I like tonight. Kings -4 going up against the Cavaliers. 7:40 tip-off in Cleveland. Cavs obviously at a +4 right there. So I like the Kings in that game, especially after getting spanked by the 76ers. So when you bet with DraftKings. You know what? Just one more time. Nightmare fuel, ladies and gentlemen. Nightmare fuel. My thanks once again to Keith Pompey for joining the program, talking Sixers, and also talking about what they could be doing at the NBA trade deadline coming up on Thursday. Ladies and gentlemen, in closing, personal announcement, and you know what? I'm so glad he got to be a part of this show. The first show we did back on February 1st, I had just gotten back. Literally, that's Sunday. Just driven back from Baltimore, went down and back with my brother for my grandfather's 100th birthday. My grandfather passed away this past Thursday. I shared that on social media. I believe it was I put it on Facebook and Instagram as well. I can't thank you guys enough for all the amazing comments. You guys are just fantastic. It has been really hard with my family and myself included. He had 27 great-grandchildren. I am one of 20 of his grandkids. My daughter is one of 27. By the way, just upgraded now to 28 grandkids. My cousin Jessica just had a little girl hours ago. So my grandfather is now the grandfather or great-grandfather of 28 kids. So rest in peace, Pop. Love you a lot. Glad you got to be a part of this show. And thank you again to all the wonderful people listening and following me on social media that reached out to extend some condolences. It's greatly appreciated. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one.